Oh, fucking hell. Scared the shit out of me. Hello, and welcome to a tier list video. I think this now makes me a proper booktuber. And I know some people are expecting me to do like a meme with doing a tier list, but I'm actually just going to do a tier list. Because it's low effort. Hopefully I won't have to cut anything. I may have made this tier list roughly like... I've read 5 books since I made this tier list because it was meant to go out in June, and then I just couldn't be bothered to record it. So we're going to do it now. We're just going to jump straight into it. So this is all the books I've read up until some point in June. I don't remember exactly when, but there we go. It's a tier list. Everyone fucking knows how a tier list works. So start off with... they aren't in fucking date order because apparently I don't know how stuff works. I couldn't put them in order. They just came however they wanted. So, first book is Animal Farm by George Orwell. It's just going directly in S tier. I used to read this book a disturbing amount when I was a child. When I was about 14, I used to read it probably once a month, like some kind of weird fucking fanatic. And then I didn't read it for years, so I decided now that I'm reading again, I came back, picked it up, and it's just as good as I remember. There's not much to say about George Orwell. It's just great. Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie. This one is a doozy already because I absolutely adore Joe Abercrombie. I think the First Law trilogy is one of my favourite trilogies. I even like the ending, which everyone fucking pans. But Best Served Cold was real... I don't know, it stuck around for too long. It was like an A book all the way through, and then there's just about 150, 200 pages more than I think there needs to be. I think it could have been heavily trimmed. But it's still Abercrombie. All the characters made me laugh. Everyone's just evil. Everyone's out for themselves, and I love it. I love everything to do with it. So I now have the Heroes and Red Country, so I am going to keep on going with Abercrombie, but when, who fucking knows? There's too many books. I can't even see... I think that's Mort. That's Mort. Mort, I've read 5 Pratchett books now this year, and Mort is... I don't think Mort is as good as people say. Mort's still amazing, but when people say like, oh, this is where you should start with him, this is his best, this is everything, I don't quite see that. I don't really... I think there's better choices in terms of getting you into it. But it's still a fantastic book. It still made me laugh consistently throughout. It was just non-stop. So I don't think I can really complain. It's just that, I don't know, I think I went into it with a different expectation. Like, I know it's called fucking Mort. I know I should read it and be like, this is going to be about Mort. But I found myself being like, oh, where's death at? I just want more death. And I think we can all relate to that at the end of the day. Breach of Peace by Goblin Boy 365. This is... I feel bad for putting this in here because, of course, it's fucking... It's self-pub. It's missing those layers of editing. It's missing that feedback and the kind of real professional help. Not that it didn't have that, because evidently he hired an editor, but there's something about having several rounds of professional editing that I don't think you're ever going to get in self-pub. I think it's enjoyable. It's a quick read. Got through it. I'm gonna read the next one. Fucking now that it's not called Kids Bop, which is just pissing me off that it's now not kept in doubt. But you know, it did exactly what he promised. He didn't say it was going to be fucking great. He just said he wanted to get it out to get feedback, etc. So I don't think he did anything that was devious or all that jazz. A Man Called Ove would have originally been here, but the more I think about it, and I feel like I'm going to put it there for now, but I feel like it's going to move down into D, purely because in terms of creating a fucking aesthetically pleasing gradient, A Man Called Ove, it tickled me in all the wrong ways. It was roughhousing me, and I wasn't enjoying it. It was like a very different type of choking, and I just didn't appreciate it. So I've got a whole review on fucking Man Called Ovate, so that doesn't really matter. You could just watch that if you want to. Wind Up Bird Chronicle fucking slaps. Wind Up Bird Chronicle is one of the most... It's just the strangest book I've ever read. I went in with no expectations of what I was going to get out of it, and it was everything I ever wanted and more. I would 100% recommend Murakami. He does have the negatives of the guy cannot write women. I've never seen someone that... It's one of those like r/men writing women where it's like the boobs bounced bobbly or whatever the fuck it is. And it's like you can tell how characters are feeling based on how their tits look, is what I'm saying about this book. So take that as you will. If you aren't into that vibe, definitely don't. But he does make up for it with everything else in the book. The weird magical realism, all perfect for me. Gardens of the Moon, first book in the Malazan series. Also, I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did. It was, I picked it up. I don't know why I picked it up. I just felt like reading it. I've had it for about a year and a half now, and I constantly... It's like The Lies of Locke Lamora. It's just constantly just out of reach of the TBR. And then I just saw it sat there. I really like how small it is and compact. And I picked it up purely because I just wanted to feel how it felt to read the actual book. And I don't regret it at all. It's confusing as shit, which everyone says, but that's the kind of the point. I feel like sometimes people say it's confusing in a negative way, whereas the book is purposely misleading. It's both being convoluted and confusing because it's trying to hide stuff from the audience, as well as it's naturally confusing. So when that all melds together, if you just kind of ease yourself into it, it gets real fun. Stardust. When I read Stardust originally, Stardust was 10 out of 10 my favourite book at the time. To be fair, it was the second book I read of the year, so it wasn't exactly fucking like a difficult contest to be my favourite at that point. But then I watched the film with my housemate, and it moves down to an A. It's still really fun. I do really enjoy it. There is completely a trigger warning for a rape at the start of the book, which I did not anticipate at all. It's very it's one of those ones that people would be like, oh well, is it, but it is a rape, and that's something you should definitely watch out for. But the film just does something slightly better than the book, where I realised that I wished it was in there. But for what it is, single chapter, it's like a kid's book. A single chapter is a story unto itself a lot of the time, and it's just a lot of fun. The Shining by Stephen King, it's also an S tier. This is my favourite Stephen King book I've read so far, purely for the fact that it had a strong ending. Like, when I've read other Stephen King books, I don't even remember whether any are on this list. I constantly... No, they're not. Misery, Pet Sematary, Gerald's Game, they all stay longer than they're welcome. They all have about at least 20 to 60 pages in the case of Gerald's Game, where it's just like, I need to explain what I was trying to do with this book. And, or like, I need to add a conclusive ending, where an ambiguous ending would be so much better. And so The Shining is the first one where it stuck the landing. Everything that happens culminates, and the story fucking ends when it should do. And it still shocked me because there are things in the film that are completely... Well, the film's fucking nothing like it. And I would recommend it for that reason, is that if you're a fan of the film and you're like, oh, I don't really want to read it because I know what the film's about, the book is so different. And the ending is different. Like, every element is so different. So I would 100% recommend The Shining as well, if you are a fan of either the film or just Stephen King in general, because my man slaps. Minor Details really, by Adania Shibley, is... I have a review on it. Really disturbing. And the writing style is really interesting in this, in terms of the fact that it is simultaneously dry, meticulous, bereft of all personality in the first half, and then tonal whiplash to a completely different perspective. I explain it way better in my goddamn review, but I think it's going to go here. Purely in terms of enjoyment, even enjoyment is a rough term, because of course I didn't enjoy this book. It's dark. But in terms of what the writer is trying to do, what they're trying to put across, it does it perfectly. Hamlet, Shakespeare, 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 Shakespeare. That's all I have to say. Ariadne is going to go and see if I can get it to fucking work. I can't get it to work, but basically, Ariadne is a debut author, Jennifer Saint, and in terms of the mythical retelling that she's doing, I don't know a lot about Greek retellings, and I did genuinely find this a really interesting book to get you introduced to it. It's from the biggest positive of this book is the fact that it feels like I'm sitting listening to my great aunt tell stories about just OG feminism. It feels like in terms of basically just being like, all men can fuck off, and I totally get with that vibe. I feel it. I'm on board. That's all I have to say. Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine, is also in C. I enjoyed it slightly less than Ariadne. You can really tell that maybe I'm not a fucking big literary reader fan, because, I'm not a big fucking anything other than fantasy, because there's a real telling sign here. This was really good. I don't really enjoy first person. First person is probably one of my biggest peeves when I open a book and I haven't... Murakami's right there, and that's also first person, but normally when I open a book and read first person, I'm just like, oh, did this have to be first? What am I getting out of this by being first person? In third person, I would have enjoyed it so much more, but that's just me. But it does affect my enjoyment of the book. The story is way darker than I anticipated it to be. I thought it was going to be kind of a much more glitzy kind of comfort affair, whereas, my god, does this it gets fucking dark, so be prepared for that as well if you decide to pick it up. So I've just seen a massive fucking spider on the wall beside me, so I've just shit myself. The Hobbit, first time I've ever read The Hobbit. I have attempted to read The Hobbit 1,000 times when I was a kid, and I always read the first chapter and was like, I feel like I get this now. I feel like I've read them all. So I never went any further. This year I actually did, and I'm just going to do the same with all of these as well. They're all S tier. They all bang. Tom Bombadil's Bay, favourite boy. Actually, I'd probably move Fellowship. Where the fuck's Fellowship? I can't tell the difference. Whichever one's Fellowship out of those fucking three, pretend that's an A, because there is it's like an introductory course to understanding how J.R. Tolkien writes. Like, there's not even necessarily that much real enjoyment. It's more like I've come out of it and I'm like, oh, I've accomplished something. I can now read Tolkien, and I think that's worth it unto itself. Tom Bombadil, as I said, fucking hero. Him and Goldberry, I need them in some kind of... They need to be in War for Him in the fucking new anime. Just have Tom Bombadil rock up and fucking start singing. You don't need to say a lot about Lord of the Rings, really, do you? It's just fucking Lord of the Rings. Northanger Abbey. Northanger Abbey is an A. It is there for me. Northanger Abbey is top class. I think it was the last book that Jane Austen, I think it was released posthumously alongside Persuasion, but it was the first book she ever actually wrote, and you can really tell that it's kind of it's a really raw version of what you get in other Jane Austen works. It's very much like this is the story, I'm just going to have fun with it. The last half of this book is a deconstruction and a satire on Gothic novels. So if you've read any Gothic novels or just enjoy horror in general, when you read this, it's just so much fun. It's just never-ending fun, and it's not my favourite. That I do prefer Persuasion. Persuasion would go up here, probably there. But Northanger Abbey does have the most... I fucking hate Thorpe. The character of Thorpe in this book is probably my most hated character in any literature I've ever read. The guy, he's just a cunt. And this book does... it's like prime Jane Austen making someone the absolute worst human being that you wish could die. Persuasion feels more like what you'd expect from a Jane Austen novel. I read it based on my great aunt. She gave me it and said that it's one of her favourite books, and just to read it. So that was my first Jane Austen novel, and I do really enjoy it. It's just so funny. Jane Austen is so ridiculously funny, and I love it too much. Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. This would be there. It's in C as well. I have sincere problems with Good Omens in terms of structure and just kind of doing everything that I didn't want it to do and ignoring everything that I really would have enjoyed. I know that's just a personal preference. People enjoy the stuff. It's completely personal taste. Just for me, I was like, the stuff happening right now is the least interesting elements of what you've set up in my head. I once again have a fucking review on this, so whatever. Dracula, Mina Harker is an absolute legend. This book was like, it was hovering between here, and then when Mina Harker takes over, she just exudes badassery, and she just sorts everything out. Everything in this book is sorted by Mina Harker. She's putting everything together. Who gives a shit about Van Helsing? Van Helsing's just some Dutch cunt that's like, yeah, I know what vampires are. It's Mina Harker that's doing the business. She's like, yeah, this is going on, this shit's going on. And then they have the audacity to be like, alright, you've done all the thinking work, but, I mean, now it's, we're going to have to go get him, so it's kind of, a man's job. And I remember getting angry because I wasn't sure whether it was going to be a sincere, this is just a misogynist man at this point in time, and he's just going to abandon his female character. But it does all come round, and as long as you know it comes round, I don't think you can enjoy it, because there was a point where I was getting angry at Dracula, like the book, and I was getting angry at Bram Stoker being like, no, she's fucking lit. If you put her on the sidelines, I'm going to quit this fucking book. But it does come round. So You've Been Publicly Shamed by John Ronson. This is a book I just picked up just for the willy-nilly. I love John Ronson. The Psychopath Test is my favourite John Ronson book. And then I've read Many Hysteric Goats and Lost at Sea. So You've Been Publicly Shamed fits in like there. In terms of, it's, for what it is, it's really good. It's a really good deep dive, not even a deep dive, just a kind of introspection on what our society's doing with cancellation, etc., cancel culture, and it just it gives a new perspective, and a kind of an unafraid perspective. It's not going to pull any punches or anything. If John Ronson disagrees with you or is challenging your opinion, he's not going to pull any punches. He's just like, this is my opinion. These are my stories that I've collated to support that, and I think it's a really interesting read, to be honest with you. For the Emperor, this is a fucking Warhammer book because I'm a nerd. Shit, where the fuck does that go? I read this because my housemates fucking love Warhammer, and I play it with them because what else would I do? I'm not just going to sit there and fucking watch them play it. So I fucking love Warhammer in the vaguest sense of I know nothing about it, I don't understand anything, but it's just a meme. I like making fun of it. And For the Emperor would probably, I think I enjoyed it more than Good Omens, which is a fucking almost heresy to say. It would probably go there in terms of, it was really funny. It's like Joe Abercrombie in space, is how I describe this. The book follows Cyphus Cain as he is trying to basically run away from any conflict that's going on. He is a commissar. He's really high up in the Imperium of Man in terms of the world that this story is taking place in, and it is him actively trying to stay out of harm's way as much as possible, but he keeps on finding himself in situations where he accidentally becomes a hero, and it's just a really funny play on it's kind of like Tom Cruise from The Edge of Tomorrow meets Joe Abercrombie. And if you want that together, then this is the book for you. The second half is nowhere near as good as the first. Once it devolves into a traditional, just a traditional narrative, unfortunately, towards the end, where it's just kind of a quest, pretty much, rather than this interesting, like, tidbits of, like, political, trying to maneuver yourself out of harm's way, etc. The Gunslinger would go bottom of A for me. Gunslinger's going to go top of B. I don't even remember what score I gave it, but in terms of enjoyment level, it was just a lot of fun. It's nice and short. I've started the Drawing of Free, haven't gone any further with it yet because I stopped it for reasons. But I do plan on continuing with the Dark Tower series because it was fantastic. The Yellow Wallpaper, man, this slapped. That's gonna go right there. The Yellow Wallpaper is about a lady who is not in the best place. She's having mental health issues, and she is her prescription, her medication is to sit in a room and stare. Well, just basically be in a room by herself all day. And it's a really clear. It's an introspection into the idea of not taking mental health seriously. Is that she kind of reflects on the fact that she was doing better when she was allowed to be creative or stuff like that, and she's just being limited by her husband, who is also a doctor, and the idea of the idea of the husband being both a doctor and a husband is kind of a position of supposed power, that even though they're wrong, they can impose their will on someone. And then a personal story of this book is that my great aunt during COVID had to self-isolate for an operation she was having. So she had to stay alone in her room for like 2 weeks. And so I've sent her this book in the post just as a fucking joke, just because it's about a woman being alone in a room going fucking mental, and I thought she'd find that funny. Going Postal. Going Postal was my first ever Terry Pratchett book, and my god, is it the best book I've read all year. It maybe not be the best book in terms of actual sincere, this is what writing is. But it's just everything I wanted. It made me laugh consistently all the way through. It was so clever. It was a really concise, well-crafted structure. Like, in terms of, it's why I see it as the best Pratchett book I've read so far, is the fact that the other ones sometimes can meander and kind of self-indulge a little, the same as Good Omens. Whereas Going Postal was like a clinical exercise in writing a story and making everything work and have a reason. And I really appreciate that, to be honest. And I would recommend not Small Fucking Gods, Going Postal is my recommendation of where to start, because I think you get enough of the world, and it's just the most concise, well-crafted, structured story that he's done, in my opinion, that I've read. And so that's why I think it should be there. Assassin's Apprentice was a fucking slog. It's going to go there. I buddy read this with Grace over at Grace Dion, and it's fucking nightmare. I've never read a book that has, like, it's worse than Kaladin. Like, when people talk about Kaladin being fucking depressed and having it rough and stuff, Fitz, oh my god, it's like, just fucking kill the kid at least if you get. Don't push the guy around so much. Like, it's so heartbreaking, everything that happens. And I do want to continue the series, but I need to take a long break before I can continue there, because otherwise I'll perpetually cry for the remainder of my life. Orlando is one of my favourite books now. Orlando was completely, once again, out of left field, didn't know anything about it. It was a book I got from, do you know when they wrap those books up at like a fair or something, where it's got like brown parcel paper on it, and it's like historical fiction, blah de blah. I bought that. Orlando came out. I was really disappointed because I was kind of like, oh, Virginia Woolf, oh, there's a naked person on the, oh, this, oh, because I didn't know who Virginia Woolf was properly. Now that I've read it, this book is incredible. the introspection into like gender identity and sexuality is incredible. The work in this book, it's just someone writing what they want, and I really appreciate that about this book, is that it's not doing it for anyone else. Virginia Woolf is writing this book for herself and for her partner, not her married partner, but her partner nonetheless. And I fucking love that book. Reread Final Empire. It's just one of my favourite series. I've just reread Well of Ascension. Like I said, I've read 5 books since I made this list. And I reckon it just goes there. I'm not even going to talk about it, because everyone, Mistborn, just fucking read Mistborn. It's so good. It has its problems, its prose is weaker, that type of thing. But the structure, the intricacy, especially with Well of Ascension. Well of Ascension has problems, but the intricacy with the plot, just fantastic. Blood of Elves. I do not really enjoy Blood of Elves. I really liked Sword of Destiny, liked The Last Wish. Blood of Elves, nothing happened for me. I was really kind of just bored, wanted it to end. I do still plan on continuing the series. I have Baptism of Fire there, because I've heard that's where it gets better. But Blood of Elves was definitely a dip in terms of quality in the series. Fahrenheit 451 is probably there for me. I really enjoyed this book. Small Gods. Small fucking Gods. Small Gods I enjoyed more than Mort. Small Gods is going to creep in right there. Small Gods is another book that I went into this book with the wrong expectations, because my housemate explained it to me, and evidently had just heard passing comments on the book, because the book was nothing like what he promised. But it was still fantastic. Ohm is the legend. My man, the turtle. I've forgotten the other character's name. I think it's just Brother. Brother's a fucking legend. The Pratchett with Carrot, Brother, Stanley from Going Postal. He writes these naively funny and endearing characters so well, and I absolutely love how he does those characters. Small Gods does also have the problem with meandering. Has a kind of, not false start, but kind of a very jarring opening where you have to really... It all comes around at the end, but it seems off-kilter to begin with. But that would be my reading for the year so far. I've had an incredible... To be fair, I'm not exactly picking risks. I'm picking well-established, really popular authors, to be fair. It's not like I'm exactly pushing the boat out in terms of literature. But I am extremely happy with what I've read this year. And if you have any recommendations based on what you see on this list, if you're like, oh, Ben will fucking love this, then just comment it, send me a message on Goodreads or some shit, or Instagram, somewhere, join the Discord and fucking comment there, just being like, oh, you should read this, and I'll add it to the list, because I do want to read more, like, push the boat a little, not exactly a lot. I'm not I'm not a fucking daredevil. Just a little bit. And so if you have enjoyed this really rambly, this will be the first video I think I don't fucking edit. I probably will just cut out the opening where I was singing to myself and then post it. So if you have enjoyed, please do leave a comment in terms of what your opinion are on these books. Because why fucking not? And yeah, just subscribe, all that fucking jazz, and have a nice day, because that would be nice. I mean, you can't argue with a nice day.